a loud voice anyways. I tend to yell.
We're
Oh,
live
good.
now, so
You sound
yeah.
great. All I'd like to do is, I probably should get in the picture though, because that would help, right? Get in the line of the camera. So how you guys doing today?
I'm doing
Fine.
great. I'm excited to be chatting with you, especially after our dinner party that we had and decided that this would be a fabulous conversation.
I know, right? We were spent, what would you say? It was like seamless from one topic to the next, but we got to give kudos to our man Tim here for keeping up with all of those topics.
Tim is phenomenal. I mean, we were saying he's a rock star, and then I loved his comment after, which do you want to enlighten our friends what you said, Tim?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I think I was like, I've drunk too much coffee and I'm still up at 2 a.m. or something along those lines. I mean, this is the thing. Everybody thinks they're like, you look up to people, and then actually in reality, their actual lives are usually pretty pretty terrible, because we see everybody else's front stage and not their backstage, as they say.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I actually think the backstage is more interesting most of the time, don't you?
Oh yeah. No.
The behind the scenes absolutely is fun, and the conversations.
So, shall we, like, to anybody who's lucky or unlucky enough to be watching this?
Yeah.
Shall we, like, we are basically making this up as we go along. The background, as April said, is that this is based on the fact that we had a 4-hour-long virtual dinner party where we were just talking about absolutely everything. And I was thinking, this would make a nice live stream, especially as April, who admittedly can't spell her own name, is a fantastic interviewer. Christelle's just fantastically funny, and I'm good at setting up live streams. So that's kind of the background. So the more astute viewers may notice that I'm the only British person on this chat. So I'm
but
from
who
the UK.
Doesn't love a Brit? Who doesn't love a Brit, right? There's something about the accent, right, Christelle?
I mean, I might be fond of the British. Let's just
a titsy that. But just wait a second, just to clarify now, despite what Americans think, that doesn't mean you're smarter than us.
I'm trying to scrabble together some viewers for the show.
You know,
so, saying, "Oh, we live yet?" It's like
the first time I met
people, got two people watching now, apparently.
The first time I met Tim, I got to meet Tim for coffee, and we had a conversation, which we decided to record that too because we couldn't stop laughing. We were dying laughing just about.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, we were laughing because of the pronunciation of a word, and we decided to go live with it and ask people how you pronounce this particular word.
I have no idea, really.
I don't remember what word it was.
No, it was a place in Scotland. So, I mean, there's Edinburgh, and then there's the place that begins with G, and that was the name of the place we were trying to establish how it's pronounced.
And it was.
I pronounced it one way, and Christelle pronounced it another way. And I think somebody came on, somebody tweeted at me some other pronunciation of it. So I don't know how good your Scottish geography is, April.
Oh, terrible.
Do you know what city we're talking about?
No.
Okay, so I pronounce it Glasgow.
Oh, right. I did see you guys said something about that. Well, I did too, because as a girl I'm connected to, I don't know if you guys know her, Glasgow Girl on Twitter, and she's a writer and blogger, and I'm connected to her. That's how I pronounce it. So how do you pronounce it?
I pronounce it Glasgow. La sound. Glasgow.
Okay.
Glasgow. Okay. We've actually got a comment from my friend Chrissy Buck, who has said, hey. So that's great.
Hey,
hopefully she's not doing up on the show just yet. She's still watching. Yeah. So that's the... So I'm... Given that like the only person who's left a comment is somebody I know, can you describe like who you are? I've got a suspicion that you might be some really famous person, April, and you've just been covering up and you're under witness protection. Especially if you always forget to spell your name properly.
I don't want everybody to know why I'm under witness protection. No, it's pretty simple. I'm just an everyday American woman. Most days just trying to get by like everyone else, especially now with this global pandemic. But professionally speaking, I have a background in social work and journalism. So definitely a bit of a chatty Kathy and very inquisitive. I also like to drink wine and walk the sandy beaches of California.
I went into a dating profile. That was
Oh, we crossed over there. Sorry, guys. Yeah. And I'm pretty much an open book, so people can ask me anything. How about you, Christelle?
Who am I? Who is Christelle? What do I do? So, you know what I loved about our conversation when we chatted before is we were so, we decided to just distinguish who we are from what we do. But
yeah, totally.
I loved that conversation, by the way, and I'd love to get into that. But what I've done professionally is a lot of nonprofit work. I've written for various blogs, both nationally and then personally. I've been on several teams to kind of help promote and establish different national blogs. So that's been a blast. It's kind of what I've done in social media. My most recent positions were with nonprofits here in San Diego. And my heart and passion really is to see people thrive. I worked for a place called Traveling Stories where we helped kids outsmart poverty by with a love of reading, and I had a blast there. So much fun. I did outreach and partnerships. Currently, I'm with a nonprofit that helps home the homeless, which is in this season a very hot topic. So it's kind of where I am right now, and I get to chat with friends like you guys in social media and meet incredible people around the world. So that's me in a nutshell. Tim, tell us a little bit about
Dora has.
Yes, I suppose I should introduce myself to the exciting viewers who came from your friendship pools, so to speak. That sounds a bit rude. But yeah, I'm Tim Lewis. I'm an author. I started, I worked in IT for 18 years, actually. That's depressing. Working on financial IT systems. But my wife died in 2011. And after that, I kind of had the opportunity to try and do new things. So I ended up writing time travel books to begin with. Then I started writing fantasy books. But lately, I kind of got so interested in learning how to try and market books on social media. And I got so interested in social media and online business that I really don't do very much fiction writing anymore. It's all about podcasting and broadcasting and doing other things. I also run the Begin Self-Publishing podcast, so it's been a bit in hiatus this year. I'm not really sure what to do about it. I might actually stop it and start a new Tim Lewis show of some variety. Hence my interest in just experimenting with StreamYard for this show, because I can use this technology for other things. Yeah, that's kind of me. There's probably loads of other interesting facets about my life. Oh, yes. Do speak.
I was wondering, one of the things that's been on my mind about you, Tim, is how did you make the transition from being an IT person to now, I think don't you own your own book publishing business as well, and you've written successfully. How did you make that transition? Was there something that you, as a child, did you love writing, and this just gave you the opportunity? How did you get here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I tried to write science fiction for years, even before I met Rachel, my wife. I was writing, but I could never ever finish a book. Partly it was because I didn't have the structures in place for me to be able to finish a book. And also it was like a confidence issue as much as anything. So it was always kind of like a hobby, writing and doing other things. And also the time wasn't right then, because self-publishing, being able to in effect publish your own books wasn't really a viable option until about 2009. So with the introduction of Kindle and with print on demand. So what print on demand is, so if you order one of my fantasy books, for example, which paperbacks, Amazon will print off a copy and send it to you. So it's not like the old days where if you self-published a book or you had a publishing company, you had to order in stock of books, and then if you didn't sell them, you didn't sell them. So now you can just list a book on Amazon, using their KDP Create Space interface, and then it's available for people to order on Amazon. So it's a very different world now for publishing and self-publishing than it used to be even like 20 years ago.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And what advice, while you're about it, I've been talking to a lot of people, including myself, and maybe even Christelle
Yeah.
has mentioned this about self-publishing. So since you're here, what words of wisdom do you have for those who are like ourselves, who's considering self-publishing?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the equivalent to. I've been trying to find a good analogy or metaphor. I always get all those words mixed up.
Mhm.
It's kind of like if you're getting your house redesigned, you can do all of the work yourself as a self-publisher. So you can create the cover, you can do like the editing, you can do everything yourself, but it will take you ages and you won't do as good a job as if you hire professionals to do the work for you. So, because originally in the early days of kind of what they used to call the Kindle Gold Rush, when Kindle was a new product available, there were lots of people who were getting very rich just knocking out really crappy Kindle books because there was just such a demand on the Kindle platform for ebooks, and there wasn't people. A lot of the publishing companies didn't get around to actually converting their books to ebooks for years. But now, like the quality level, there are still people who are reading these old books about how to make $1 million on Kindle, and they're just shoving rubbish onto Kindle and they're trying to game the system. But those people are progressively dying out. So the irony is now a lot of self-published books are actually better quality than a lot of the traditionally published books because they've been done on almost like a labor of love. So you can spend like thousands of dollars on editing, you can get Stephen King's cover designer to design your book. A publishing house wouldn't pay you to do that. It wouldn't pay for those level of services because they're not expecting to make that much money out of you. So there are now self-publishers who are actually creating better books relatively than traditional publishers, but there's still a large swathe of people who are trying to do it because you are having to spend the money up front when you're self-publishing, which is different from a traditional publishing deal. Because if a traditional publishing company comes and picks up your book, then you're not obviously paying for that. But if you're self-publishing, you have to pay for all those costs up front, but you get more money down the line because the royalties are much higher for self-publishers. So that's kind of what the situation is at the moment. The other advantage of self-publishing is you can publish anything you like. You don't have to appeal to a gatekeeper and say, I want to write my book about 4th century French poetry. You don't have to pitch that to anybody. You can just write the thing. You have to pay for it, but you can then put that book onto Amazon and make it available for people to purchase.
Okay.
I have a question for you about that as well. And this is one of the reasons Tim and I connected, is based on children's books.
Yeah.
Tim, what would you suggest in publishing a children's book? I know that you suggest I was exploring Amazon, and you made another suggestion that might be possibly better for children's books, in that Amazon does not allow us to publish hardcovers. And that's disappointing for a children's book. A lot of times, because of the illustrations, the gorgeous illustrations go into it, the hardcover is what we're wanting. What are some companies that you might suggest?
Well, I've never got around to using them myself because I'm highly incompetent at actually getting things done a lot of the time. But it's a company called Ingram Spark, and they are also a print-on-demand company. So they will print a book and they can print a book at a time and send it off. They're not directly interfaced with Amazon the same way that Kindle services are because they're not owned by Amazon, but they do print-on-demand hardback books. So they would be an option for you. And the other advantage to Ingram Spark is Ingram are one of the world's biggest distribution companies for books. So if your book is available on Ingram Spark, then it can be ordered in bookstores under your publishing name. You can do that with the Amazon ones, but unfortunately it puts it as published by Amazon, and a lot of the bookstores hate that because they genuinely don't like Amazon. So Ingram Spark is a better way for that option. Depending on like how you do it, you might then almost be better to go to actually like local print houses and things and actually print off copies in the old-fashioned way.
Oh.
I mean, this is the thing. Print on demand is quite kind of, it's very much about text-based books in general. Illustrations can work, but I would certainly look at Ingram Spark to see if you could do that, because that is the best, that's the lowest risk way, because you're not, if you have to have stacks of boxes of books around that you have to sell, then that's a much bigger commitment than doing a print on demand book.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in the middle of working with an illustrator who's just absolutely phenomenal. And I want to do his illustrations justice. So that's a great idea. I'm going to look at that.
Yeah. How long have you been writing that book for? It's been a while, hasn't it?
What was that?
How long have you been writing the book for?
The book was written actually in 2017. So I wrote it in 2017, and it was in May of 2019 that I decided, you know what, let's make this a project and actually go forward with it. So it was completed, and that's when I started looking at illustrators. And unfortunately, there was an accident in my family, and I wasn't able to go forward with the project at that time. Sometime later, I ended up finding this amazing illustrator named Cat. Cat on Paper is his handle through all social media networks. He brought my story to life in a way that I'm blown away. It wouldn't be the story that it is without his illustrations. So right now we're in the process of, he's still completing the work. Something that blew me away with the illustration process is each picture done professionally by an amazing illustrator. There are, for each picture, each illustration you see in a children's book, there was probably 5 steps that led up to the final page that we actually see. So each page is a 5-step process. So it takes longer than I realized, or anyone might realize. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into these beautiful illustrations. So yeah, it'll be, I think by the time I've published it, it'll probably be about a year. From a little over a year from start to finish, the project. So
has it got a name, or is that trade secret?
Trade secret. I will tell you that it's about love, which is my theme. It's about love, and it's about a girl's journey of finding love and what love means, presenting love in a whole new way, I would say. And it's just this beautiful, magical, mystical journey of learning what love might be and how we can find love in the world. And actually, I'm excited to publish it after our current crisis. Hoping it's kind of a unifying book that reaches everyone and has a positive message. So, April, I'm curious about you and your blogging and your writing and your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing journey? Because I did read a little bit of your blog, and I love the subjects that you introduced. What is your writing journey?
Yeah, well, for me, it started, when I got into journalism. Prior to that, for years, I had been working with individuals and families in crisis, women, domestic violence survivors, as well as sex abused children. And I started a lot of public speaking and just kind of created a little soap for myself. And along the line, I just, started doing national conferences, and I really wanted to do more. And so I went back to school and studied broadcast news, journalism, and production. And there, loved everything I did. But it was when I got into journalism, I discovered a couple of things. One was that and prior to that, I didn't really think that was something I was capable of. In fact, true story, I actually failed journalism in high school. So it was kind of funny that I found myself there, and then I was really good at it, and I loved it for a lot of reasons. But the number one reason was that I could lend my voice to those who didn't feel they had one, or who didn't know how to use their voice at the moment. So I did that, and then I started realizing I could write, and that was a skill I didn't know I had. I loved talking to people and hearing their stories. And then, I worked in the television industry and all of that. But in 2012, I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer, and that changed everything. I mean, there's no call for, bald women, fighting cancer in any sort of, television or film platform. So I stepped away and I decided, I think what it was that I was hearing things in the cancer community that didn't set well with me. So, as you can imagine, Christelle, we don't do the work we do unless we're activists and advocates. We kind of got a mouth on us. We step up to the plate when we see something wrong. And I started making notes and said journalism skills to help other women, to educate women in the community on cancer, and maybe even give a place for nurses and doctors and help bridge the gap between patient and doctor. So I started out with a cancer blog, and then what I realized was that as a cancer survivor, I didn't want to read them long. So now I kind of have a cancer education blog, and then I created the lifestyle brief because I was just, busy. Everyone I know is too busy. So I pretty much make my blog in most brief format only. I call it, a nutshell of lifestyle and health. And so I've been doing that, and I've had some setbacks with it, but I cover all of that on the blog. And right now I've booked a lot of interesting people that are going to, be featured on the blog. But that's why I started blogging. I mean, I kind of feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I got in late on this. I wish I'd gotten in earlier because I really love it and I love meeting other people. But that's what I'm doing now. I'm keeping it, short and to the point, and writing about primarily women's affairs and the day-to-day stuff we're all faced with at some time or another. Thank you for asking, Christelle.
Well, something you said that caught my attention. It all caught my attention, but I love that you said you have a heart for giving people a voice that might not have a voice. I think that's really powerful. And I love the stories that you've shared kind of behind the scenes about giving a voice to women who have been abused or to homeless, or and letting them share their story, which is always powerful. Our stories are powerful. And it's fun how we discover in that humanity is more alike than different, no matter what our status is, no matter where we live, no matter who we are. And so I love that you give up that voice. And I know Tim is very good at that as well. And I think this is what excites me about meeting with you guys, is the fact that we can give powerful voices to people who don't maybe have a voice yet, but they're coming up, and we all have that opportunity.
I mean, one thing that interests me about you two is you're not kind of typical American, in quotes. I mean, it's a bit of a, because I've visited like 23 states now, I think, and like there isn't really a typical American, but a lot of Americans are afraid to talk about sensitive or sort of like more unpalatable topics. Or on the other hand, they can just talk about that, and that's all they talk about, and it's almost like they talk about it in a negative way. But you're kind of positive people, but you're not afraid to talk about any topic at all, or any that. I mean, I'm somebody. I think the British are in some ways more negative, but like more willing. Even in the UK, there are topics that we don't talk about much as well. So, I mean, the domestic violence is something that people don't talk about anywhere in the UK or the US in general. So that's quite a novel feature of you two, from my perspective.
That was an interesting topic that we discussed during our dinner, and I'd love to approach that in the future, because April's story and my story, I think, would be an interesting thing to talk about. In telling our stories, we give other people a voice, and that's important, I think. And Tim, one of the reasons I started listening to you too is because you were so open about your journey in losing your wife, and I would listen to your interviews and how you became what you are now and why you're doing what you're doing, and that caught my attention. I thought that was just mind-boggling, to hear how you went from such a low, and then that was your step stool into kind of catapulting you into where you are now.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, my wife had a stroke March 27th, 2009. And she was in hospital for like 11 months after that. I mean, she was actually in a coma for like about a month, I think, afterwards. They were medically induced, but so by the time she got home, she was still disabled all on her left-hand side. This all the mirror things get me. But she didn't make very good progress in getting better to begin with. But the great problem is that if you're a vulnerable person medically, well, especially, I mean, now shows it more than ever. You're so vulnerable to things now, like because I mean, I remember a doctor telling me it's like that the NHS is full of realistic people who tell you exactly. It's funny not having not being private medical system. The NHS is full of people who tell you exactly, in the most negative way, exactly what's going to happen. And somebody said to me, it's like, you'll probably live 1 or 2 years because she's just so like vulnerable and exposed now, her immune system, because of all the effects of the stroke and everything. She'll probably die in a few years because of a small infection, and that's exactly what happened in the end. I mean, she had polycystic kidney disease anyway, which is one of the reasons why she had the stroke in the first place, which is a very, very common genetic complaint. I think there's about 5% of the population suffer from it. And it usually leads to people having dialysis or kidney transplants later on in their life, but very occasionally it makes you more vulnerable to strokes. So she passed away in February 2011. So, but it was funny because I was kind of forced to be positive because I had to think positively to get through the situation, and I've kind of taken that onwards after her death. It still took me like 2 and a bit years. It took me 3 years to give up my job afterwards, even though I kind of had the means to do other things because I had enough income and resources and things after her death. So it's like it wasn't kind of like, oh yes, I'm energized, I'm going to really make that change. It still like was a longer process than maybe I suggest at times. Oh, we got some comments.
You know, you guys, I have to confess, in case you're wondering, feedback or static here on my end. So if it takes me a minute to understand what you're saying, or if I'm not chiming in, it's only because I'm trying to piece it together. How's it sounding on your guys' side?
I did notice you're freezing. I think probably what you're describing is what we're seeing is you're freezing. Is that have you noticed that, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have an issue with your broadband connection, but you're okay. I mean, you're okay. We can hear you when you talk. It's kind of a little bit static. So if you can't understand anything we say, then just ask us to repeat it. Oh.
Let's see. Now she's
Oh, she's frozen.
Sure. We lost you. I'm guessing she can hear us, but we can't hear her. We lost your sound, April.
Do this if you can hear us. Oh, no. Well, I should put it out. This is the fun of live shows, everybody.
This is the amazing thing about this is the amazing thing about beta testing. Thank you, Tim, for suggesting we do beta testing.
Well, I mean, it's like anything like it's not really. We've actually got quite a few people watching, I think, because apparently Chrissy Park has decided to do a watch party, which means that you've got like another set of people on another.
You did a watch party?
I mean, it's like actually, I mean, those watch party things are quite interesting in that I think there's a couple of. It's like I've never used one. A watch party is where you're watching, you're commenting on somebody else's thing, and you can actually comment. You can have a separate set of comments on another show, or you can even have a video. I think it's like a premiere or something where you just play a video and then you can have people just watching it and making comments about it. It's actually quite an interesting concept. I did think about doing one for podcasts at one point, but I never got around to it.
I like that idea. I told April to come back on if she can, to pop back in, if she can.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see. This is good to, oh, okay, so she's welcome.
So in our dinner party conversation, I don't know if you want to talk about this because it's, but you were still going in, you were one of these essential workers still going into work. Is that situation changed, or are you still going to the homeless shelter place?
I'm currently not going into the homeless shelter. However, there is a very small group of people that are, and keeping that running. That particular homeless shelter does house over 200, around 200 people. That includes an emergency shelter. So it's an overnight shelter, and it includes long-term residency. So there are people needed that to help. Hi, April.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, go ahead. Everything you're saying. So go ahead. I was curious. Thanks for asking that question.
You heard, did you hear what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So people are going in to keep the shelter running, and the residents are very good at keeping themselves running and keeping things flowing. The residents, the students who are there, it's a long-term facility where they get to live for an entire year, attend classes, attend school. They're businessmen. They have a variety of backgrounds, so they're very capable of keeping themselves up and running as well. So the shelter is in place. However, many of us who work there are not there right now. I have a 13-year-old son who's at home, and thankfully right now I get to be with him. And my employer has said that they want us to be able to be with our family and humanity. It's so fun to see what's happening in the midst of a worldwide crisis that just feels so surreal. To see humanity support each other and just kind of go, we don't know what the hell we're doing, but we're going to learn this together and we're going to figure it out. And so that's kind of where I am with my job, but also I'm kind of giving my heart for what I'm seeing out there in the world. I don't know, what kind of stories have you guys seen that have kind of sparked your hope and love for humanity again? April or Tim?
Well, it's funny because it's like my situation is when I'm not traveling or I'm not going to conferences, my life has been pretty isolated anyway in the past because the nature of London is you have to kind of travel a long time to get anywhere. And a lot of the friends and people I had from university days or whatever, they don't live in the same part of London as me. So it's kind of like I could go weeks without like meeting people socially here, unless there's a conference or event on. So it's interesting because I was thinking, oh, I've got to make my life a bit less isolated and a bit more social in the day-to-day basis. And then it's like the entire rest of the world has now changed to be more like my life. It's kind of like almost the opposite of what. But I mean, it's been useful for me because one thing that isolation does seem to encourage in people, and it's not healthy, I don't think, for anybody, is it does exaggerate your emotional reactions to things. I mean, like here in the UK, the amount of like coverage of people who've been like outside sunbathing, which you're not supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be going for like one essential walk for exercise a day at most, or go to a grocery. And there's been a lot of backlash from people I've seen on social media. And to begin with, I was thinking, like, these people are really unreasonable. And then I'm thinking, no, this is just like everybody's kind of feelings are exaggerated at the moment. And it's like you've got to really cut everybody a lot of slack and say, like, some of these people might be there might be a woman who's in an abusive relationship and is just trying to get out of like the house that she's having to stay with a partner or a man or whatever. You don't know people's personal situations. There are some people who are no doubt breaking all the rules because they're just not nice people, but you can't assume that about anybody and like what's going on. And similarly, a lot of the people who are making these comments may be people with long-term health problems who are really, really concerned that they may lose their life because of coronavirus. I mean, I know, April, you're in a position where you're a cancer survivor and you're really, I mean, you are somebody who is at risk of, like, if you caught COVID, it wouldn't be a pleasant situation, would it?
Right. And they would just, honestly, I mean, if we're just going to have a frank conversation, which is what I prefer to do, I fall into the category of people who would look at my medical, would determine that I wasn't worth saving. That's the bottom line. And that's kind of the conversations I'm having amongst family members above a certain age or had pre-existing conditions. At the same time, you know, I think probably the moment that really made me kind of cry actually was I was watching a news program and I saw the first cancer survivor who was actually in the cancer fight. And she said that her oncologist called her and said, if you get this disease, you and I need to talk about ways to make you comfortable until you die. The oncologist flat out told her, you're in the game of cancer, basically. So if it comes down to saving your life or someone else's, they're going to figure you're already dead. That was that broke me a little bit, because we hear a lot of people say, you know, we're the greatest country in the world and, you know, all of that stuff. But in the reality, no one should choose, and no doctor or medical professional should have to say, if you're 60, if you're 60, I mean, we, let me be straight, we live in a society that boasts how 60 is the new 30, you know, the new 40, the new 50. We're all about how we can do anything we want at any age except fight for your life. They're going to say at 60, you're the cutoff point. So that was been kind of heartbreaking. But what you said in the beginning, Christelle, is humanity. If I may, I'd like to give a shout out to my gal pal, Rose. Rose is, let me see. I know if she's going to watch this, she's going to say, how could you forget? She's a Mary Kay consultant, just really big heart. And she has several relatives and friends who are nurses. So what she started to do was kind of create this project that's getting off the ground, where she gets people to donate by, you know, buying hand cream and face moisturizers, because what the nurses are telling her is that with the mask on their face and their hands, because I can relate, washing our hands, you guys probably can too. There's also, I mean, they get cracked and sometimes bleeding, and they've got all this chafing around their face from their mask. So she started, you know, asking everyone in Facebook and social media and people like me who had been customers of hers, would you buy a hand cream? Would you buy a face cream? And she's putting together these boxes to ship off to nurses, just kind of as packages with little notes in them to let them know we appreciate them. And then there's people, you know, sending masks in to help the doctors and surgeons. And so to me, when I see people doing that, I think, you know, it kind of tugs at my heartstring. There's people out there who do, in fact, care about those who are on the front lines. Have you guys actually like given thought, all of history? We heard a lot about military, but today on the front lines is our medical staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We're just thinking.
We're processing, you know,
Yeah.
I saw a friend who works in the medical profession posted something on Facebook that I thought was really interesting, because we tend to think of, and this is true, our heroes are the doctors and the nurses, but she made a really good point in that to keep a hospital running and to be able to take care of all of these new sick patients and other patients who are sick for a variety of reasons, it takes a village. We have the heroes who are nurses and doctors, but also the people who are checking them in, also the people who are drawing their blood, also the people who are taking their chest x-rays. And I thought, you know what? Wow, it's just something you don't think about. So we have an entire village within a hospital taking care of all of these new patients and patients that are coming in at all times for a variety of reasons. So that's kind of my thought, is that there's heroes all around us.
Yeah, and there's lots of people who are nothing to do with the medical, who are like people who keep the water system running, people who keep the power system running, people who run the internet, fix all the internet cables. There's so many people in industries that if they stop working, we'd be totally screwed. And yeah, obviously the people on the medical front line are really taking the brunt of it. I mean, they are at the cliff base, but there are so many essential workers in today's society. As I was saying to somebody, like 30 years ago, it's possible nobody would have noticed this coming, and it would have just passed, and there would have been like, oh, there's a lot of flu deaths this year. Like in 20 years' time, it could be that we have all these robots working everywhere, and it's like, okay, it's fine. We can all just let the robots run all the business and things. But this particular point in time, it's like this whole essential community is going to be working to keep everything going. And like, yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to have kind of jobs and activities where we can stay at home. And we don't have to necessarily take that risk. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We've got absolutely loads.
I know a few people who work at Amazon, and they're saying that it's really, you know, that it's a challenge to show up every day. So definitely what you said, I feel grateful that we're in a position that we can be at home. And I'm glad you're able to be home, Krista, because especially working in shelter programs, that's, you know, that's too close for comfort, I think, these times. So I'm glad you were able to work something out with your employer.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, everyone has, you know, their own situation. I'm very, very fortunate that I'm able to stay home with my son and have this opportunity. And of course, like we're saying, again, at the forefront of my mind are the essential workers that go out into the community every day and have to be there. If we don't have our grocery professionals, we don't have food. We don't have, like Tim said, our water, the people who keep our water flowing. If we don't have energy, I mean, it's these things you don't think about that keep society running now in this day and age. So yeah, yeah. Thank you, April. Tim, to lighten the mood a little bit, you asked us a question when we had our.
I was going to say, we've got some sort of weird telepathy thing here. Do you want me to ask you the free animals question?
Yes, let's go there.
Oh, it's slightly less impact. I'm sure some of the people there's loads of comments in the chat, and it's just my eyesight I can't barely read them on. Oh, we lost April. April discussed the free animals question.
What's an animal that disappears?
What's it? Chameleon, is it? Is it
a chameleon? Is it a chameleon?
Yeah. Chameleon. She's a peacock chameleon. Oh, it's maybe the meter's running out on her thing.
A meter?
Well, like electricity meters, you know, like where you like people who are like in bed sits in the UK, which are like the worst kind of housing. You have to put a coin in the meter to keep the electricity going. So maybe electricity meters running out.
I never heard of it.
Anyway. Oh, we got. I managed to waffle just so that April could come back, and I need to add it to the stream. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yay! There she is. Yeah. Hi, April.
There we are.
You're back, April.
I can still hear that static, but what were you saying? I heard you say something about a question, and it was hard to hear you after that. I don't want to miss that. What'd you say? I don't want you having any fun without me here, guys.
we weren't.
Yeah. Anyway, we talked about this before, so this shouldn't be. You've had practice. Rather than asking people what they do, I've started to ask them to name to basically describe themselves using free animals. So, could you describe yourself using free animals, April?
Right. Oh, you want me to do it? Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Today, let me see. I would still say. Three animals. Oh, today I feel different. Bunny rabbit. Uh-oh, I've been stomped. The lion still exists. And maybe a laughing hyena. That sounds about right today.
Yeah. Well, no, it does change over time, but it's a good question to ask people, because I was thinking about trying to reframe it as some other, like, how do you describe yourself using 3 movies or something like that. But the problem with movies is everybody in general, most people are going to say an animal that everybody's heard of. I mean, I've had the odd weird animal that I had to Google to find what it was people said. But in general, animals are a great level playing field. So if you say like you're a dog or a rabbit or whatever, people know what dogs and rabbits are. But if you say I'm some obscure film from the 1940s or something, and I'm like, what? Or sort of, and then I'm like, have I ever seen that film? So it's a good question because it's a common reference point, and it's not that awful like what do you do question.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about somebody by what
Yeah.
animals they pick. So, Christelle, what 3 animals would you use to describe yourself
Today.
I'm
like April, it can change daily. So today I feel like, I think last time we talked, I said sloth.
Sure, sloth.
Yeah. Today I'm going to say a dolphin.
Ooh.
I'm going to say a hummingbird. That still remains. I said hummingbird last time. So hummingbird, dolphin. I need a third. Okay. I'm going to go with, give me a second. I'm going to go with a cheetah today.
Oh. Is that because you're feeling energized and you're running around a lot, or?
It's probably because I drank a lot of coffee, honestly. I drank too much coffee. It turned me into a cheetah. I have energy today. Yes. Yeah. Often I can have a sloth in me.
Good.
I can run low on energy. So Tim, tell us your animals.
Well, I always used to say sloth, a panda, and a cobra. But I think the panda's slowly changing into a bit more energetic animal. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be, but I'm not quite so just lying down like sloth-like all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
My mornings are still Slothville central, really. I don't do anything really in the morning at all, but I'm doing a lot more in the afternoon now rather than just this like little 10% when I act like a cobra and I'm doing all sorts of activity. So something a bit more, say a meerkat. I'm a meerkat rather than a panda now. So I'm sort of moving a bit, bobbing my head up a bit, up and down. Maybe a bit more cute than I was before. Oh, we've got an answer in the from James. He's a squirrel, a bush baby. What the hell's a bush baby and a leopard? Do you know what bush baby is?
What's a bush baby? James, tell us what a bush baby is. In fact, this is great. I love that he answered this. Our friends listening, if you'll answer, we'll read it live and kind of.
Well, we've got like 5 minutes left. So, well, I mean, are we going to do an hour-long show, or are we going to do long? I mean, we could keep going forever, but I think at some point we don't want a 4-hour show because
no. I think this is a great test to see where we go and what we can do, and zone into some interesting topics. We have so many topics we could discuss from.
Yeah, well, I think at some point we will be looking for guests, because it's Agora Pulse, as I sent you the article, I've done a test, and if you have guests, your show does so much better than if you don't have guests, and it helps to mix things up a bit. So it's like, I think guests would be useful, and it's also a great way to get to know some people a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely, for their backgrounds. April, what do you think? How long do you think the show should be, April? What is your?
How long do you think? Again, I'm sorry.
How long, with your experience as on television and your background in media, how long do you think a live stream should be? I think we lost her. James did say a bush baby is like a nocturnal animal, small thing, massive eyes. That's awesome. Thank you.
Now we know.
Thank you. I have a feeling.
Yeah, we're going to have to. I think we need to send the IT people around to April's house.
Yeah,
have a mysterious location you can use in witness protection.
This is good practice. I'm glad does happen, so we know what to expect.
Well, I
and
mean,
what-
that's actually one good thing about having like 3 people on the show. You've always got disaster backup. Like we can have a conversation while April's. And I have to. The way that I'm using StreamYard, as you probably see from the thing. I mean, on the free plan at the moment, we have live with StreamYard written everywhere. Oh, she's back again. But I have to see her and then add her in.
There she is. You're back.
I'm back. I put my earpieces on. Let's see if this makes a difference. I'm so sorry about that. What were you saying, Christelle?
What, with your expertise and background in media, how long do you think a live stream should be?
Well, definitely no more than an hour. And I think we'll figure it out as we go, at least in this case. I do a lot of things in short spurts myself. But probably most of the short stuff I did, like in television, was on average about 22 minutes.
Mm.
So, everybody does their things. I think it depends on what you're talking about, what your subject is, who your guests are there any guests? So I think in our case, like you said, this is the beginning. We're just trying to figure this out. But I think it depends on the person, the person or the persons who are hosting. And obviously, if we have, look, James said 30 minutes is perfect. There you go.
Yay.
Thank you, James. I'm with you on that. I think that's pretty good. Now, I think if we want to get together and do a lunch, like a virtual lunch and sip on a little wine, whatever.
Well, it's lunch for you guys. It's 8 o'clock here. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we could call this like going to the pub. Okay, maybe that's what we should change the name. Meeting at the pub.
All the pubs are shut, so it's kind of like this is the equivalent. Anyway, it's well, we did start a bit late, to be fair.
We did start a bit late, yes.
Yeah,
and we're going to have a little problems thanks to me. Sorry, guys.
No, I like that this happened. We get to kind of see any potential challenges.
Well, I say it's quite good having 3 hosts in a way, because if one person drops out and the other 2 can keep talking, rather than I've seen like one person interviewing another person and then they lose the person and then they're like, what am I going to talk about?
What am I going to do?
They're frantically trying to search for them or like getting the phone out, and it's great to watch in a way, but it's more like watching a sort of a rabbit in the headlights.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're right.
All kind of entertainment.
And I was going to say, one of the things we should discuss while we're here is that all together before we end, is that what people can expect to find here. And we were talking back and forth. I think it's going to be a variety of content kind of related to day-to-day living, right? Or whatever's on our mind at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, because you're not, most of the people I know on social media are social media people or they're online business people, but you're just kind of more, well, I would say normal, but normal is a bit like you're exceptional people, more on the kind of the real world rather than the world of online business.
We're not. Yeah, we're here. We're here to kind of talk about life and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whatever's on our mind, and this is kind of a grab a cup of coffee or a drink and sit down and chat with us, I think.
Yeah. What we were attracted to, I think, in our original conversation was first of all, how long we chatted. I feel like conversation, and we touched on hope, we touched on death, we touched on life, we touched on joy, we touched on obviously current events. And I think we sat there blown away going, you know what, we should go live and see if we can relate to whoever wants to join in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of us getting together, 3 friends, and having a conversation about whatever it is at the moment. But I think, like I was saying earlier, this is our first show, so we're figuring it out. And all shows, even award-winning shows, start out very, awkward in the beginning, for lack of better words, and then they just grow so well. So that's what I was thinking. But thanks, guys. I appreciate being here with you all.
I appreciate and value you both so much. What you both bring is incredible. So thank you as well.
And I suppose I should thank both of you. It's kind of like
you should, Tim. Come on now.
I would like to
Who's the director and get the Oscar award out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Because if you don't, we'll just cut you right out of this, Tim.
Didn't you win some film award at some point, April, for a documentary you worked on or produced or something you were saying before? I'm sorry, I'm going over using the 10-minute wiggle room that we started.
That's okay. But yes, I did.
Please share with us if you can, because
Yes.
this is
Yeah. It was a piece on domestic violence called Intimate Enemies. I produced, directed, did all of the interviewing, because for those who don't know, when you go into the news business, one of the things you need to know how to do is all of it. Usually when you start out news business, they send you someplace in the middle of the Sahara Desert somewhere, and then all you have is you and a camera and a person and no one to help you. That's kind of how you pay your dues in the beginning. So I did a documentary. I was told I can do anything I wanted. I produced one on domestic violence. And I think we talked about this in our last lunch, was that it was something that was really near and dear to my heart, because I had spent almost 20 years working with individuals and families escaping domestic violence. And the thing that really pushed my buttons was that almost every person from the police department to emergency response teams and crews and the doctor's office and even psychologists and therapists, they kept saying, well, why did you stay? There's something wrong with you that you stayed. So my message was kind of like, here's why women are there. Here's how they get there. Here's a few things you should say and kind of don't say, although I interviewed a lot of survivors. And it's time for us to start asking, and, men, why did you stay? Why did you do it? So it was kind of new at the time, but I did receive an award for it. And I'm really proud of it, even though it's been several years now. I'm proud that I did that and was able to get my message out there. And I hope to do more in the future. We'll see.
I think that would be amazing. And in this crisis, we're hearing about so many stories where people are forced to stay home, whereas before they were able to at least get that rest by being out. So I would love to hear more, April. And I'm going to share a little bit of my story. And I know there's men out.
Yeah, you have a story to tell.
I would love to connect on that. And I know there's men out there too who have dealt with their own domestic violence. So this is that will be an incredible topic. It's hard, but it's so needed right now. So April, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Anyway, I think that's my roomy eyes. I think that's about an hour. So I think that was a good first effort. There was lots of positive comments in the comment section. We found lots of people called James, various surnames.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, we got the James demographic totally like. We get on Facebook people with the name James. So,
if your name is James, you want to meet us right here at this time, at this day. Come to the corner of James and Facebook, and you're in.
So, can people expect this the same time next week then?
Yeah.
We're gonna make 2 weeks of it. Ooh.
Are we doing Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon, or what were we saying?
That was
while we're talking.
But
I was thinking, like, what were you thinking, Tim? We're all talking about this live, guys, so that you could see this is what it's like when you're starting out. I was thinking more along the lines of like once a week, or what did you say, Tim? Did you say?
Well, I think we talked about doing it twice a week while we're still in the lockdown. But on the other hand,
got it. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not sure twice a week it will go mad. But on the other hand, it's a good time to learn how to basically do this sort of stuff. So it'll be noon Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain time, 2 p.m. Central time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. UK time, 9 p.m. Central European time, and if you're in Asia, I'm sorry, I don't know.
I got to be honest with you, I was lost a long time ago, so we're good. As long as I know when to show up, we're good.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be on Tuesdays. Well, let's say definitely on Tuesdays, Thursdays if we feel like it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that works for me too.
And
And
now
then,
I know that I
we
can
plan to
actually
have some.
I can pre-schedule the posts on StreamYard. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't realize you could do that, and this is because it's the first time. So I'll pre-schedule it for Thursday, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to be working on
Everybody
this
watching?
technical stuff. Ish.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This is awesome, you guys. I will see you in the DMs.
Yes, we will. Okay, thanks a lot, Tim.
Bye.
Good to see you,
Bye.
Christelle.
Bye. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.